Good morrow to you all. You have fallen on bad times.
Brought to you by the Royal Holloway Shakespeare Society.
You join me, Theo Dudridge.
And me, Subhan Hay, as we bear some bardy truths.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Bad Times. This week I'm joined by Cordelia Tarbrooke, President of the Student Workshop. Say hi, Corky.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. The third year life is an interesting life, but we move. So Cordelia Tarbrooke, as I said, is the current president of Student Workshop. She also played Alex's mum in Love You Lost in first year. She was the publicity officer of Student Workshop in her first year. You've also done publicity for a couple of shows. I think Little Bear was one of the ones you did. And you also co-directed Butterfly Effect, as well as being a founding member of the Morosophy theatre group. As mentioned, you are the current president of Student Workshop. Can you tell us a bit about what Student Workshop is?
Yeah, for sure. So the Student Workshop is a student-led theatre company that's affiliated with the drama department at Royal Holloway. So rather than working like a society, we try to mirror the way that we work with a professional theatre company. So we develop kind of in-house productions that our members can come and bid to us, and we help them develop original work that will then eventually be put on within the departmental spaces. So we're very lucky we have the Boiler House Theatre and the Carol Churchill Theatre that we can use for any in-house productions that we develop. We also offer other opportunities to kind of give students a way into the industry, so like workshops with industry professionals, scratch nights to trial work, as well as, you know, like your social events and all that other fun stuff.
Very good.
Yeah.
Nice. How did you get involved in Student Workshop?
So I was thinking about this the other day because I was on committee since my first year, but I don't actually remember how. I think because I didn't actually run for a committee role when I was in my first year, because obviously when you're in first year, the only role you can go for is the first year rep, because the committee will have been elected before you join the uni. And I think at around Christmas time, I ended up doing the publicity for a main term show, as you mentioned, Little Bear. And right as I started doing the publicity for Little Bear and released all of their logos and publicity images and things like that, the current Student Workshop publicity officer had to step down from their role because of other commitments. So because I was doing Little Bear at the time, Phoebe, who was the current president while we were in first year, just basically approached me and said, we've seen that you do publicity. Is there any chance you could join committee? So then as of the January of our first year, I was then on committee doing their publicity, and then carried that on through my second year as well. So,
incredible stuff. How are you finding the workload for that generally? Because you've done a fair bit of publicity stuff like over the course of your year at Holloway. Like, what's the workload like?
Yeah, it varies. Particularly with publicity, it varies a lot. I know you've spoken to Tom on here before about and things like that. But it is very, very hit and miss. You know, you have times where there's a million events on that need a million graphics to be made for them. And then you have other times where, you know, one project comes up and you're super excited because there's finally something to publicize again. So I think because I've kind of taken that on since my first year, you know, being in a student workshop show, publicising a show and publicising a committee and publicising for Black Hound and doing things with other companies elsewhere on top of my degree, I think I've got used to a big workload. And so now a big workload doesn't really bother me. I'm fine with a big workload, but a massive workload, I'm then suddenly like go into overdrive and I'm like, what's happening? So I think I've always been fine with the workload because I've just been used to it really over the last 3 years.
Fair. Has there ever been a moment where you've been sent publicity like, okay, you've got like a day to put this together, or like an hour to put this together?
Let me tell you, there's been times, there has been so many times where it's been like, you know, I don't know, 5 p.m. and someone has needed something to be up by 6 p.m, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So there's been so many quick turnarounds. you know, that is something that used to really freak me out, but then it got to the point where it didn't faze me anymore because it just kind of became part of the job. Then of course you make something and they say, oh actually no, can we change this, or can we add this, can we take this away?
Yeah.
Then you just have to be like, yep, of course, get it done and get it out within the next kind of 10 minutes.
You're just like panicking, just like, okay, I'm trying my best.
I know, the internal panic.
I always feel guilty when I message Ashton about something like, hi, could you get this up by like 6 p.m. tonight, please?
That's the thing, because that's how, like, now being president after doing the company's publicity for the last 2 years, I now feel so guilty when I have to message Jack, who's our publicity officer.
Yeah.
He's absolutely incredible. Like I'll text him and say, and I'm so apologetic in my text because I've been in his position for 2 years. I'm so sorry, but is there any chance you could get this up? Like, and he just straight away is like, yep, sure, and just does it.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Have you got any favorite memories from the shows or events you've been a part of with Student Workshop?
I've got so many. I think something that really stands out to me was the dress rehearsal for when I performed in Love You Lost in the first term of my first year.
Okay.
Because as when you're in your first term of your first year at Royal Holloway, you haven't done any performance yet on the course.
Yeah.
So you haven't worked with the CCT tech, you haven't really worked with the tech team, things like that. And so I just remember walking into that dress rehearsal and the rig was down, everyone was so excited, all the tech team were there. Phoebe, who I mentioned was present at the time, came in and gave us all a robe.
Yeah.
And it was just the energy of it was so exciting. And I think that was probably the last time really that we had that proper real show week experience with any kind of COVID online shenanigans going on. So that's probably a standout Student Workshop memory.
So yeah, as you kind of mentioned, you also do work for a theatre company back home, which is Black Hound. How did you get involved with them?
Yeah, so Black Hound is a independent company based in Somerset, where I'm from.
Nice.
And it's just approaching its 5-year anniversary in November, which is really exciting. And that began 5 years ago. My boyfriend, who wasn't my boyfriend at the time, we were just friends. He started a theatre company, and everyone just was like, wow, this boy, he's like, 15 years old and he's starting his own theatre company.
That's incredible.
And, he had a cast rehearsing like in a park, things like that. Just trying to get this show on and starting his own theatre company to do the show under. And it was just incredible. And then we were just kind of talking about it, and he needed someone to do their social media and things like that. And of course, at this stage, I was 15. I hadn't worked for a theatre company before. And I was doing photography GCSE at the time, and I was really into photography and things like that. And so we were just talking, and then I was like, we decided that I would come on board with the social media and stuff. And I think at the time I probably didn't think much of it because we were still in school, that kind of thing. I thought just a little thing that he was doing. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And I've just kind of stayed working with them ever since.
That's incredible, because I mean, completely as an outsider, I thought this was a long-running sort of theatre company that had been set up, and it was something that you guys did. The fact this was like a kind of student-led, young person-led theatre company, that is insane. Because that kind of segues nicely into Morosophy, because that was a theatre company that was also kind of student-led at this uni. So can you tell us a bit about how that came to be and how that sort of started up?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was in Love You Lost in the first term of my first year, and that was directed by Joshua Thomas, who's amazing. He wrote and directed the piece, and he knew before we'd even finished the show, he knew that wasn't going to be the end. He knew that he wanted to work on it further, and he wanted to take it somewhere else. Yeah. So himself and Jacob Gregory, who was the DSM, and Martha Adnams, who was the producer, decided that they were gonna keep developing this and take it further. So less than 2 months later, they were sat in meetings preparing to take it to Edinburgh in 2020. And Josh, obviously I was in the show and wanted to be in the show in Edinburgh again.
Yeah.
And Josh came to me and was like, will you do our publicity? And to be a first year who had then been asked to be on a crew, to me at the time, that was just mind-blowing. I was like, of course I will, and like just jumped on that opportunity like you would believe. And we would sit in a library room at like midnight all through January, like just working on this Edinburgh application, choosing the venue, designing logos, publicity, all of this kind of thing. And then once all the applications and things were done, of course Edinburgh then got cancelled for that year.
Big sad, a big sad.
Very big sad. And it worked out well because it gave Josh loads of time to then work on the script. It gave us time to rebrand the company because, you know, as I said, sitting in a library room at midnight designing a logo, like you know, we
the classic student times.
Yeah, we were blessed with the time in the end, like after it was cancelled. And yeah, we picked up new crew members along the way. We lost some people along the way, with people graduating and going into new jobs, all amazing things like that. And yeah, the company just kind of had a year to mold into what it is now.
So, as you mentioned with Morosophy and Love You Lost, you took the show up to Fringe, specifically the Edinburgh Fringe this year. So, what was that experience like? And can you tell us a bit about how that you already told us a bit about how it came to be, but like what the process was like actually going up and doing the production and just experiencing, like it was a week's run, wasn't it?
Yes.
Roughly a week's run at the Edinburgh Fringe. What was that like?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it got cancelled the first time, and we were gutted, but that was absolutely a blessing in disguise because it meant once we had that year to kind of fundraise and think about things and refine things.
Yeah.
When we actually ended up taking Love You Lost to Edinburgh in 2021, so this summer, we were just so ready for it, so excited for it. We had a really tight cast who had spent loads of time working together on it and kind of had a whole year essentially to prepare. And then we had a really intensive week in Egham before we went, where we just rehearsed, you know, 9 to 5 days for a week in Medicine Beer Garden.
Nice, the best venue.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually makes a really good rehearsal space.
Because I think another group who went to Camden Fringe, Mischief and Mayhem, they use that space to rehearse as well.
Yeah,
and it is a really nice area because the gate's always open. You can just walk in and do whatever. But yeah,
exactly. So then once we'd had that week all together, rehearsing really hard for it, we then travelled up to Edinburgh, and just travelling up with everyone in itself was just such a good experience. It was just so much fun. And we got there and we were in uni halls, so we all were basically living in a flat together.
Nice.
And it was just incredible to actually, after essentially 2 years really of waiting, to be out on the mile, seeing our posters up. We had our publicity on lamppost wraps, so we would be walking around the city and just see Love You Lost on a lamppost, which was probably one of the most mind-blowing moments for me, especially as someone who does publicity, to see something that you've designed on a lamppost in Edinburgh, like for everyone to see, is just crazy. I still think about it now and I'm like, what? So yeah, and then it was just a week's worth of flyering, promoting the show, talking to reviewers and selling out, really.
Nice. Because you sold out, was 4 out of 5, was it, that you sold out? That's incredible for a Fringe show, like for any show for that matter. That is incredible. Any plans that you want to exclusively reveal, or are things still kind of up in the air at the minute?
Yeah, I think things are still just kind of bubbling away from post Edinburgh, really.
Fair.
We were so lucky to get those sellouts, because originally we would have had like I think it was like an 11 in the morning, midday-ish kind of slot. That was what we were meant to have. And then because loads of companies were then not going to the Fringe because of COVID and travel restrictions and things like that, we then actually got offered a primetime 6:45 slot in an 80-seater venue.
That's so cool.
Which we wouldn't have got as a student company. You just wouldn't get that any other time.
Yeah.
And we were so lucky in the sense that opportunity came up rather like quite last minute, and we were able to sell it out. And so it was just one of the biggest ways that we could have, you know, launched the company really. And so I think, you know, that was just a crazy exciting experience that then we thought when we got back, we were like, okay, we need to take some time to properly think about what we're going to do next. So kind of, you know, without saying too much, because things are very, very rough at the moment, we have a new original script in development that will be written by Josh. And we're looking at small R&D venues to kind of trial some new material and just kind of see what our next big project is.
Nice, incredible. It's interesting you mentioned kind of opportunities because of COVID. I was part of a show just before Christmas actually, where our tech and dress was on the day of the London Tier 4 announcement. So about halfway through the day, we all got told to like meet in the main kind of foyer area, and like the theatre manager came to speak to us and was like, well, the announcement's just come out, and like in normal circumstances, you know, we'd have to close the theatre. However, and they basically offered us, we could still rehearse up until Thursday night, and then they offered the opportunity for us to stream our show. So it would be available for 2 weeks on the theatre company's website, and they're able to view that. But the fact that you actually got to do this live with a live audience is incredible, and that's a great achievement to have done. I look forward to see what comes from Morosophy in the future.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
So I've got another question for you. What would you say is your favourite part of being in the theatre doing a live show?
Oh, so much. I love the adrenaline that the live aspect gives you. I love it. Like, I love to do stage management and things like that. Just to kind of be backstage, and just, I think for me, I just love knowing that anything could go wrong at any given moment. And it's just the thrill of it. You know, like when you kind of see everyone has their little rituals and their way of coping with it, like to see the cast doing their thing, to see the director's reaction to it, to see everything come together from an outside eye. It's just the best feeling in the world. You can't really describe it.
I know the feeling. What's been sort of the most interesting thing that's happened on live theatre, whether it's like a mess up or just a glorious moment of just pure improv or pure magic?
Okay, I've got a scary moment and a glorious moment, so I'll give you both.
Go on.
Scariest moment that was also kind of like exhilarating was I stage managed a ballet of Alice in Wonderland. And they had these like wooden doors. They were door frames that were on wheels and had actual doors, and the dancers kind of moved these door frames around the stage. And the audience is raked, so the first row were on the stage and the audience rakes up. And one of the doors just fell on the front row.
Oh geez, okay.
And so like just a door just fell on an audience member, and at the time, like no one knew what to do, no one knew how to react. It was just one of those things where on stage they had to just sort it out. But it was the fact one of the dancers was pushing the door and went down with the door, and just had to fix it there and then. And it was like everything it was like someone just pressed pause on the world, and I just stopped and everything froze, and I was like, oh my goodness. But then it was all fine. And I have to say, a glorious moment probably came for Love You Lost in Edinburgh. Like assistant directing with Josh, I would sit with him in the audience every night, and we would still have the same nerves watching it every night. And Ethan Chappell Mason, who is amazing, he was in the show. He decided each night that he would change one of his lines and add in little ad libs.
Nice.
And so one of my favourite moments would be sitting and waiting to see what ad lib he was going to come out with. And some of them that he came out with, I was fully in tears laughing. And obviously no one else in the audience knew it was an ad lib.
Yeah.
And they must be thinking like, why is this girl crying over here? Like, is she okay? But that just waiting for that and the response to that is also another one of my favourite moments of watching anything live.
Oh, I've got one which I've just thought of. I was in a production of Bonnie and Clyde. I think it was one of the last productions I did with my theatre company back home before coming to uni. And what happened was I was playing Buck, and there was a scene where I have to disguise myself in this women's salon by tying a towel turban around my head. Now, what the director did was they deliberately gave me a shorter towel than normal, so the towel turban every night would just fall. So it got to the dress rehearsal, I was doing it, towel turban just fell, and it came to the night of the show, which was being recorded. So there's a moment where you just see this towel turban fall ever so slowly, just on my face over time. And it's a moment where it just covers my face completely, and I'm just like, I've still got to act like this. But the audience are loving it. So you kind of just accept your fate at that point and just go with it. Especially with a musical, you just have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, I love that. You just have to go with it.
It's just you've got to commit to the bit. Commit to the bit.
Oh.
So, putting on a production, starting up a theatre company, putting a production up at any fringe festival is no easy feat. Do you have any advice for anyone wishing to put together some theatre with the view of taking it up to a festival, or just putting it on anywhere in a venue or at uni, or just, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing I would say is, well, there's a couple of things actually, but the biggest thing I would say is just go for it. If you want it, go for it. You know, no idea is too big. Just do it. And in order to do it, surround yourself with people that you love working with and that you trust. You know, people who you know are going to be there to kind of help you at any hurdle, because as you say, it's not easy to put on a production as it is, let alone if you're taking it to various places around the country or the world or wherever you want to take it. You know, knowing that you don't have to do it all yourself and you have those people working with you is just the best thing. You know, just knowing that you don't have to take on every single bit of admin, every single bit of the creative side. You know, have those people there that you can delegate roles to and share the process with, and just enjoy it and enjoy working with them.
Incredible. That's amazing advice. It's amazing advice. So we're now going to move on to the news section. So you mentioned before a guy called Ethan Chappell-Mason, who is the director of a show at the Carroll Churchill Theatre, which is 27 Ways to Heaven. Can you tell us a little bit more about the show?
Yeah, he'll love that he's been name dropped twice now. Yeah, so Ethan has written and is directing 27 Ways to Heaven, which is the Student Workshop's production this term. So 27 Ways to Heaven is a really, really exciting piece that kind of explores elements of gig theatre and things. So it's the first time that the Student Workshop have had cast members coming into auditions with an instrument in hand, or, you know, the first time there's ever been kind of, I mean, in our time at Royal Holloway anyway, the first time that there's been a sort of integration of live music within the work. So yeah, I think that's a pretty big selling point. It's the first time we've seen anything like this. So hopefully the tech team will have an absolute dream with it, with all of the incredible cast, with all of their musical talent.
Nice.
So yeah,
incredible stuff. And finally, can you give us any more insight with projects that you have coming up with the Student Workshop or Black Hound potentially?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned with Black Hound, they're approaching the 5-year anniversary. So once we celebrate that in November, there'll be loads of projects kind of bubbling away under the surface. So definitely I'm gonna just shameless plug. If everyone follows B Hound P on Instagram, then you will be able to see everything that comes from our 5-year celebrations. In terms of the student workshop, we've got loads of workshops coming up, so we'll be working alongside the department and offering some opportunities within Greek theatre.
Oh, interesting.
We had a creative producing workshop the other day with an amazing freelance theatre producer that was so insightful into the industry and roles within the industry. So my goal is to get them back soon, so that anyone who missed it can come and learn a bit about the role of creative producing. I think it's a role that everyone in theatre should learn about, because it's so integral. So we'll have a lot of other workshops in terms of sort of career paths and things like that, because I think that's one of my biggest goals as president, is to almost give people a little step up into the industry as best we can. And we've got a kind of reimagined Map B that will be kind of all revealed soon.
Exciting stuff.
Yes, anyone who doesn't know, Map B is Midnight at the Boiler House, which is like a scratch showcase that we do in the Boiler House of all places every term. It's not at midnight though, but it's in the Boiler House.
A big shame.
I know. So yeah, that gives people an opportunity to submit original work. Theo, I know you've been in a few Map Bs.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so that gives people a chance to kind of, it's like a scratch night of original work. And we're kind of growing it a little bit over the next few weeks, ready to share with everyone. So that's probably the biggest thing we've got coming, as well as 27 Ways to Heaven at the end of November.
Amazing stuff. So because this is a Shakespeare Society podcast, I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure all our viewers want to know. What is your favourite Shakespeare play?
Ooh, probably All's Well That Ends Well.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. It's always been the most gripping plot for me.
Fair.
Yeah. I also did kind of want to say King Lear because my name's Cordelia, but I thought that would be
nice.
Pop out.
little bit just got to get the name drop in there somewhere.
I know.
There are no Theos in Shakespeare, which is a big sad. But there you go. I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you very much for coming on the show, Cordelia. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of Bard Times. I have been your host, Theo Dudridge, and in the words of the Bard himself, have patience and endure. Take care, everyone.